We'll now go to the gentleman from California, Mr. Lieu, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard some disturbing comments from my colleagues across the aisle today that somehow we need to not criticize the Supreme Court and we need to not attack the legitimacy. That's just absolutely wrong. We are co-equal branches of government. Our job is to conduct oversight over the other branches of government, including the Supreme Court. And if they have self-inflicted wounds, if they do bad things, it's our job to criticize them and to show that to the public. And we are not here to prop up institutions if they don't deserve to be. Now, one reason the United States Supreme Court is at its lowest approval rating in U.S. history is because multiple Supreme Court justices lied to the American people. So I have some questions for Professor Frederickson. These justices lied during their confirmation hearings, and this is how we know. In the Dobbs majority opinion, the majority states that Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh signed under that opinion. They had to know at the time of the confirmation hearings that Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. So, Professor Frederickson, did Justice Kavanaugh tell the American people under oath during his confirmation hearings that Roe was egregiously wrong from the start?
No, I don't believe so.
Did Justice Gorsuch tell the American people that he believed Roe was egregiously wrong from the start?
No, I don't believe so.
In fact, they did exactly the opposite. Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch went out of their way to assure the United States senators under oath and the American people that they viewed Roe as settled precedent. In fact, he told Senator Lindsey Graham that he would have walked out the door had Trump asked him to overturn Roe. And this is what Justice Gorsuch said. I would tell you that Roe v. Wade, decided in 1973, is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. It has been reaffirmed. A good judge will consider it as a precedent of the U.S. Supreme Court, worthy as treatment of precedent like any other. He did not say Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. And then Justice Kavanaugh had the following to say. He said, it is a settled precedent of the U.S. Supreme Court entitled to the respect under principles of stare decisis. The Supreme Court has recognized the right to abortion since the 1973 Roe v. Wade case. It has reaffirmed it many times. Kavanaugh did not say that Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. These two justices lied to the American people. They went out of their way to assure U.S. senators, the American people, that they viewed Roe v. Wade as settled precedent. That is one reason U.S. Supreme Court is at its lowest approval rating in history. That's why we need to also pass a Supreme Court code of ethics. And then in my remaining time, I'd like to ask Reverend Schenck some questions. So clearly, when the New York Times called you to ask for the United States Supreme Court, they already had information that there was a leak of the Hobby Lobby decision. Is that correct?
Yes.
And based on that article and the leak of the Hobby Lobby decision, it's certainly possible that the Dobbs decision was actually leaked by conservatives on the court. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure I can answer that, Congressman.
So I'm just going to say it's certainly possible. My Republican colleagues act as if this leak came from the liberal justices. There's no evidence of that. The evidence could certainly point to conservatives leaking this to hold the conservative justices to that opinion. So I wish my Republican colleagues would stop smearing the left or liberal justices for leaking this when there's no evidence that they did so. And then let's talk about what Congress did to protect Supreme Court justices. We passed a law. We voted off the floor a bill to help protect Supreme Court justices. And I know it was conservatives that refused to protect Supreme Court justice law clerks with that same protection. I think that's shameful.
What?
I think Supreme Court law clerks should also be protected. And when we talk about actual political violence, you know who had their skull hit by a hammer? It was a spouse of the Speaker of the House. Multiple Republicans made fun of that. They circulated conspiracy theories. They said all sorts of things that were not true. Republicans should be ashamed for doing that. So please stop whining about threats to Supreme Court justices when the actual violence of a person being hit in the head with a hammer and had to go to surgery was a spouse of the Democratic Speaker of the House. I yield back.